Okay, so thank you. I'm Martel. Um, I've been playing it with Adept Scholars for several months now, and while I've been playing as a Holy Paladin through our Nax run, in 2019 I played a Elemental Shaman on Horde side through the uh, through the classic WoW, and was really excited to do it in TBC. Things didn't work out for that to go through, but I've got a whole lot of shaman tips and tricks and a whole lot of shaman info, and I'm just hoping that we can get through this tonight. And if at the end, if there are questions or things I don't address that you thought maybe should be addressed, uh, feel free to speak up. Or if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to ask. I am I'm a teacher by trade, so I'm used to getting questions mid presentation. Kind of how I do things. So in this presentation, we're going to hit four basic areas. We're going to do a leveling basics, sort of a philosophy behind leveling. We're going to do a spec and profession choices analysis, an Aldor or Scryer analysis. And the last section is going to be like specific items of interest. These are things that you can get now that are in Classic WoW right now that'll make your leveling journey as a shaman a little bit easier. Maybe some hidden gems you didn't know about, and sort of what you can be doing to advance your shaman experience or enhance it to make it a little bit better. Basic leveling principles is where we're going to start. So, as we start basic leveling principles, I'm going to kind of explain my philosophy behind basic leveling principles, and I did not come up with this. Many of these will apply to all classes, but leveling is a function of three different ways that you're spending your time. So, leveling faster is all about managing your time, and you can the you what you can do here is if you speed up any one of these three areas, you actually will increase your leveling time. And it doesn't matter if you increase your kill speed, which is what everyone tends to want to do, or if you decrease your travel time, which will mean that you spend less time moving from mob to mob, or if you increase your recovery speed, or how quickly you are ready to go into the next fight. By reducing time in any of those areas, you are increasing your leveling speed, and time does not care which area you reduce. It will advance at that time. So, for example, we can increase our damage done. So you can put spell power on your weapon, and you benefit from it, right? Or spell power on anything, right? And it will increase your damage from your shocks or your chain lightning, whatever. It will. You can go ahead and you can put on your weapon. You can get a great new weapon upgrade, and your kill times will go down, right? Or you can get a whole bunch of spirit on your armor set, and you will take advantage of your recovery time being much faster. You can decrease the amount of time needed to recover by wearing a shield a lot of time because you will take just less damage. Uh, if you're a leather wearing class and have ever leveled as a rogue, you'll understand that when you take damage, it comes in really chunky when you're wearing that leather. But a shield will almost double your armor value all the time. Okay, so keeping a relevant shield, at least is very advantageous to increasing your recovery speed. You can reduce your travel time. One of the ways that you can do this is a simple enchant on your shoes for minor movement speed. Do not underestimate the value that that provides. That movement speed will save you a lot of time. You can talent into your improved Ghost Wolf. That will change the casting time on it and allow it to be cast much faster, and therefore you reduce your time moving between spots on the map. Any way that you increase the efficiency with which you're going to go through this is going to improve your level experience, improve your leveling time, level quickly. One thing that I'm going to add here that is not in the slide presentation that is a thought that you should probably think about is that the Draenei starting zone is likely to be very crowded. I would get out of there as soon as possible. As a shaman leveling, you do not want to be leveling through the Draenei starter zone the week of launch, because if you do, you're going to fight for mob tags. You're going to fight for quest mobs. It's better and more efficient to go get to Iron Forge. See if you can find a guildy mage who will give you an Iron Forge port. Go do the dwarf starting zone. It is never crowded. You can always level through there. Your first 10 levels will be much more kind to you going through there. Then you can get ahead of the pack and go back. Once you're ahead of the pack, it'll be much less crowded for you. So that's kind of some examples of leveling speed and how you can speed yourself up a little bit. It doesn't matter where you reduce your time, as long as you just reduce the time and be efficient with what you're doing. Be sure to pack your bandages, so you don't have to cast a spell. There's a mechanic that many of us are familiar with of mana per 5, right? Every 5 seconds where you don't cast, your spirit regen gives you a tick. Be mindful of when you're going to get that tick. Wait to cast your shock until you've got that tick of mana, and then hit the shock. And then you'll go on the cooldown for 5 seconds. Just take those ticks when you can get them, to get that recovery time back up. All right? Okay. So, again, these are some of the examples of what we've done here. Reducing recovery time. You can ensure Water Shield is always active. This is a new spell for shamans. Every time you get hit when you've got Water Shield up, you're going to recover mana. Make sure that's always up. It's free to cast. It's just a global. Bring food and water to recover from your encounters. Bandage and potions don't reset the 5-second rule. So you can recover hit points without stopping your spirit regen. Don't neglect spirit on your gear. You can get a lot of use out of it, because we can instigate a pull with spending a lot of bursty mana up front and then not spending any mana towards the back end of that pull. Reduce travel time. Talent Ghost Wolf. If your leveling is enhancement, Talenting Ghost Wolf will save you 2 seconds every time you go to cast that spell. And that adds up over time. Minor speed on the boots. Save for your mount. Keep your mount up to date. Be ready to go to the epic mount. Okay? Reduce kill times. We've got this here, and I did this slide backwards. You increase your spell power, or your attack power, or your crit. Use high burst potential to kill your enemies. Wind Fury, Lightning Overload, Shock. Take advantage of your totems, right? So I refer to this as the camp strategy, right? When I'm pulling mobs to kill them, I'm going to set a spot up, and I'm going to pull mobs to my totems for 2 minutes. And after I've pulled all the mobs I can, I'm going to do my totemic recall to get my mana back from that. And then I'm going to move to a new location where I can pull more mobs in to the new totem location. Don't waste too much time and too much mana casting your totems over and over again. You want to take as much advantage of the duration of those totems as you can. They're very short buffs, so as long as you can keep pulling mobs to them, you're going to get powerful effects out of them. Half the reason shamans are brought out to raid is those totems. So why not use them in the leveling journey, in the leveling world? They are fantastic benefits that are sure to make your time more fun, more thematic, and it will increase your efficiency. So be sure you're using that. Okay, the next slides are going to be about specs and professions, your choices, your strengths, and kind of what professions go well with each spec. There's some analysis for what benefits you get, and then so we're going to talk about all of that as we go through this section. So you may be aware there are 3 shaman specs, and the next slide is going to show us them. So those 3 specs are elemental, enhancement, and restoration. And that is the order that the talent trees appear from left to right when you are creating a character. Elemental shamans are range damage dealers. Their primary damaging abilities are lightning bolt and chain lightning. As caster DPS, the primary stats while leveling should be spell crit rating over spell power, which is greater than int, and then spirit and stamina are about equal. You don't want to neglect either your spirit or your stamina, because again, that will power your recovery. But your spell crit rating should be valued above other stats when you can get it, because critting, you get this extra benefit from some of your talents that will give you extra damage on your critical damage. And so critting gives you that high burst potential where mobs just fall over faster than one would expect. So critical damage is essential to the shaman way of life. That we live and die on our crits. Um, your rotation should be to lay down totems, pull with lightning bolt into chain lightning, then a flame shock, and then melee until the mob dies. Then repeat it. In a group, use appropriate support totems. So, if you find yourself as an elemental shaman running in with a melee group to cleave a dungeon, be sure you're dropping Wind Fury. You're going to want your spell power totem. Wind Fury is going to be more effective because you are a support DPS class. So, make sure that you're benefiting the party you're with. That's going to get you invited back, being useful in that way. Um, so, totems, generally speaking, totems in a melee group should be, you should have, if you're in a melee group, you should drop your fiery AoE ones, either Fire Nova or Magma Totem, if you're doing an AoE situation. Your water totem should almost always be your mana recovery one, even if you're in a group that is melee, you're going to want that mana back repeatedly. You're going to want your earth totem to be strength of earth to give them attack power. And then we'll talk about this with enhancement because it's the bread and butter of the enhancement life. Your air totem is going to be either Wind Fury totem or Grace of Air totem, or for the shaman who are parsers, it's going to be both. So this is actually a raid tactic that we're going to talk about with enhancement. If you are enhancement, you are going to want to totem twist. All right. So your party is going to want you to do this. So be ready for this skill. What it is that when you drop Wind Fury Totem, you get 10 seconds of Wind Fury granted to every main hand weapon in your group, in your party. And it will stay there for 10 seconds. Then you can drop your Grace of Air Totem and give them agility until the 10 seconds wears off. And then you want to recast your Wind Fury. And then switch it back so that you maintain both buffs for the entire fight. Okay. As that's totem twisting, and it's fun, but it's going to be something you have to pay attention to, especially because that Wind Fury buff will not be affecting your weapon because you have the better one on your personal weapon. So that is a skill. Learning to totem twist properly is the difference between a very good enhancement shaman and an okay enhancement shaman. Uh, Enhancements are damage dealers. Their primary damage will be melee swings. This is an auto attack and won't feel great before you get your dual wield specialization in Storm Strike. So supplement your damage with shocks. Stat priority again should be crit, which is greater than strength or agility. Strength and agility about equal because you're wanting to level that crit, which is a little bit better than stam and spirit, which should be equal. Not exactly equal, but you should value them equally because you do need that spirit for the recovery, and you do want that stamina so that you stay alive. You are going to be taking hits, quite a few of them. Your rotation will be to pull with a lightning bolt into a shock or a storm strike, and then continue to attack until the mob falls over. You should always imbue Wind Fury when you can. It is greater damage than Flame Tongue and greater damage than Rock Biter. I could go into the data on this, but essentially, after watching a bunch of shaman guides online, the graphs all point to Wind Fury just being superior DPS at almost every instance of the game. If you have a very fast dagger set, which you're not going to want, then Flame Tongue gets to be close. Generally speaking, that's not going to be what you wind up with. So you're going to go for slower melee weapons. You're going to want that Wind Fury to be on there. The last spec to talk about is Restoration, which is healers, and they are excellent group healing and support. They're the healer of choice for dungeon groups. You prioritize your quick heal on the tank, and you chain heal to top off the group. You don't have any hots, but Earth Shield is sort of like a pre-heal tank spell. So you put it on, you can maintain it on the tank, and it will act almost. It's almost a hot. It's not quite. Again, you want to be mindful of what group you're in as a restoration, because you're going to want to play those totems down that are supplemental. to your group that benefit them the most. Um, we have another supplemental ability called heroism, uh, and your raid lead will want to choose when you use that because it will debuff the entire raid with a debuff so that we cannot receive it again for a certain amount of time. So the raid lead will be calling for that when that comes out. So really, only one shaman in a raid group will likely be casting that until it's on cooldown. Um, and then we would call for it for someone else. So be prepared that you're going to be wanted to pay close attention to heroism. But of course, as you're in the world and in dungeon groups, heroism is a wonderful spell, and you should use it as often as you need it to get down larger targets. It's a huge haste boost to everyone in your group or raid. So, due to the strengths of these classes and their specs, and they're widely different, they're going to have some different options for professions that are going to have some impact. For elemental, I'm planning on playing elemental myself, and leatherworking is going to be my profession of choice. Drums are amazing. There's a riding crop that you can sell for money early. There are 3 pieces of previs gear via dragon scale leatherworking available to you that are just great. Jewel crafting is going to be beneficial because we benefit from those unique gems. Um, there's also a neck in the sunwell that can be crafted that you're going to want, and jewel crafting also provides a consumable neck, which can provide a stat boost to your party. Enchanting is always good on enhancement. It will provide, or on elemental, it'll provide extra spell power on your rings that you can't get any other way. Tailoring has the spell strike prebis option. However, from what I read from the 2019 Classic, the spell strike set for elemental shamans did not come out to as much damage increase as they were expecting, and the leatherworking came out ahead of it in practice, and that was coming from the testing that was done by the people I looked to for that data was Egregious and Melderon. So their data set was showed that that came out ahead. For enhancement, blacksmithing is almost mandatory. You've got to have up-to-date weapons, and this provides quality PvE and PvP weapons in every phase. Jewel crafting again takes advantage of the unique gem options. These will give you a little bit more bang for your buck than your standard gems. And enchanting, your ring enchants, of course, would be very good. You get the extra stats on your rings. Leatherworking can give you some previous armor set. Again, it's a 3-piece. And you would also have your drums and your riding crops for making a little bit of money. They also like engineering. Being up close and in combat, a lot of times they can pop an explosive, and those engineering explosives and trinkets make for neat little tricks in both PvE and PvP that can provide a little extra damage punch. For restoration, jewel crafting again provides unique gem bonuses which have great value. Enchanting gives powerful healing on rings, and then tailoring can give you some previous healing optional gear. Um, if I were going restoration, I would probably do enchanting and plus something. But I feel like the ring enchants for healing is almost too good to pass up. If you're going to be playing as a resto shaman, I can't see not taking enchanting, for just from my perspective. Uh, but people will play what they want to play, I guess. But I do think that's probably the most optimal one if you're talking about optimization. All right. Choosing a faction in Shattrath. Should you be Aldor or Scryer? Here we go. So, if you're Elemental, it's close, but Aldor is greater than Scryer. And this is because the Scryer ring that most people tips the scale for a damage caster provides hit rating, but Elemental Shamans don't care about spell hit. Elemental Shamans need 38 hit rating to be hit capped, and that is so easy to get that you're just going to incidentally have it most of the time. Make sure you've got it. Make sure you have 38 hit rating to be hit capped, but that is a very low number. The shoulder chant from Aldor edges out the Scryer one because it has additional crit rating that's a little bit higher, and crit rating is going to be something we're going to live on. So much of our abilities key off of our crits. Crit is actually mana efficiency, because when we crit, it reduces our next spell cast by 70%. So we want to crit all the time. If you went tailoring, the Scryers do have the pattern for spell power spell threads. That is preferable to the Aldor healing ones. However, this is also purchasable. You can just buy a spell power spell thread. Of note, all Alliance Shaman will be Draenei. So we start out with Aldor rep, and we start out in the hole on Scryer rep. So that is, if you're being a little lazy, if you want to be lazy, it's going to be easier to grind the Scryer rep or the Aldor rep than the Scryer. For enhancement, it's also pretty close. Shoulder enchant is slightly better from Scryer, as crit rating is more important than the attack power, but the difference is pretty minimal. And the Draenei Shaman will get more Aldor reputation. If you were going to choose to go Scryer, it would be because you were enhancement. It's very very close, and I don't think you'd be disappointed with Aldor, but if you chose Scryer's enhancement, I think that is maybe slightly advantageous to you. Restoration is the Aldor shoulder enchant is better for healers. Recipes tend to be better for all healers in all professions from the Aldor. Again, you start with a reputation bonus being a Draenei, going with the Aldor. So if you're enhancement and you really want to grind, you could choose Scryer, but for the rest of the Shaman, Aldor is going to be a pretty clear option. All right. Classic items of specific interest. This is probably my favorite section of the guide. These are items here to talk about that are available in Classic right now that are going to have a pretty big impact or extra longevity that you might not have thought about. These are things you could chase down to make your Shaman experience a little bit easier, a little bit smoother, and just make things go more your way. So let's go through some of these specific items. Blood Scalp Channeling Staff. Obviously, I'm thinking more towards Elemental Shaman. This level 28 staff has nature spell damage on it, and it drops in STV now. I've got one in my bag, ready to go. If you're looking for a staff at that level, that's about the level where you can switch to more of an elemental leveling grind. That is a excellent staff for that. I mean, it's 19 nature damage at that level. It's really hard to find that much spell power in your 20s on anything. The green whelp armor. Now this is a fascinating item that comes through leatherworking. So if you're leveling leatherworking anyway, this is an item to keep an eye out for. Basically, it has a chance when you get hit, 5% chance, to put anything that hits you to sleep, and it's a long sleep too. I think it's like 10 seconds. That they go to sleep, and then so if they hit you and fall asleep, well, now you can bandage. Now you can heal yourself. You're not going to be interrupted if you want to drop a spell on them. This requires level 30, and it works on mobs of up to level 50. It is especially funny in PvP. It is actually hilarious. The
Hey
DOS.
Martel, can I interrupt you for your first question?
Yes.
So I'm curious. Just you were talking about the channeling staff. So before you get too far out of it, you made a comment about switching to kind of the more elemental build, which made me think, I know like on a warrior, most people would spec arms until 40 and then consider a respec a fury. If you're, leveling a priest right now, you're gonna go into discipline with a wand spec until you hit 40 before you even consider shadow. I mean, is there kind of a comparable idea in terms of spec tracking just during those initial leveling phases where one's ahead to keep you moving quickly before you would want to maybe consider a respec?
Yeah. So actually, the first level of talents in enhancement is notoriously terrible. Um, the base level talents are pretty bad. So the first 20 levels, or I would say if you were going to optimize the first 20 levels, it's better to be elemental because the talents have immediate impact. Once you hit level 20, I would respec enhancement. If you were going, the traditional wisdom would say that enhancement is a little bit faster as you're going to be swinging that big two-handed weapon that you're going to want to get a hold of. And then at about level 30, elemental starts to catch back up, and then I think it's a matter of preference, but most people would stick with enhancement because of the recovery time increase needed for the elemental. It's not like elemental can't do the damage that the enhancement does. They do, but the enhancement is going to re- need less recovery time. They're a lot more mana efficient because they're getting more of their damage off of melee swings. So I would expect that most shamans are going to want to level as enhancement. Um, that said, even with leveling as enhancement, you take advantage of every stat. If you find if you're enhancement and you're wielding a spell power weapon, you're gonna find that it's going to be beneficial to you because you're still going to be shocking. You're still going to be using uh, those kind of those kind of abilities. So um, it's not useless. You can almost think of leveling a shaman almost like leveling a hunter, in that every weapon's a hunter weapon. Well, every piece of gear is a shaman gear if you can put it on. Does that answer? Am I
Yep,
was that
no, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
all right? Cool. So the deviate scale belt is a craftable leather belt. It lasts for a long time, provides great quality stats. This is farmed out of a quest in low level dungeon Wailing Caverns, and so you just do the quest, you get the pattern for the belt, and then you can craft the belt. You got to get your deviate scales and craft this belt. But if you, it's a blue belt, sub level 20. It's going to last you a long time, which is good. Because it's always good to have pieces of gear around that you don't want to replace right away. Totem of the Storm is a world drop BOE relic that you can get now. It adds damage to Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt. Relics are kind of hard to come by, and there's not a lot of them in the game at this point in time. If you were going to go elemental, that is actually uh, the second bis item for an elemental shaman who would be raiding. Like that is if you cannot get the bis totem to drop, that's the second option. So and you can buy them on the auction house last night. Uh, right now, I picked up mine for like 20 gold. Like, it was nothing. So that I particularly kept an eye out on that one early. Benefits of damage on chain lightning, lightning bolt. Everyone's going to be casting that spell at some point. So it's better than nothing. And then it is a BOE one, whereas most of them are going to be BOP and out of dungeons. All right. The Barbed Thorn Necklace, Nature Spell Power Neck, again BO BOE. So this is purchasable off the auction house. The Diamond Hammer, a low level hammer. It's usually very cheap. It's a one handed option. So if we talked about leveling that with a shield, like put fiery on that, and you're going to do great DPS for a few levels right there, and it's gonna carry pretty hard. You've got your Abyssal Mail leg guards. This is a classic item. This is a level 58 item. Um, This is from back when they were doing the Silithus stuff. These would drop. This anything would have the abyssal um, prefix on it, and these will be green or blue quality items. It's almost a whole item set, and they're just itemized TBC way. So if you get like sorcery, abyssal mail sorcery, that's going to be spell power and like tri-stat. If you get striking, that's going to be like tri-stat with melee stats. Um, so those things are going to be pretty great right now. Um, they are it's hard to find gear better than that. That would be BOE or outside of a raid, honestly. Wild Thorn Mail, that was cheap to craft. It provides nature spell power for an elemental shaman. It'd be really great. Uh, there's other options also. Obviously, if you get to that point of the game, your Black Dragon scale set really good for you enhancement guys. Um, going to provide you a lot of attack power and some key stats. Okay, uh, so for you resto guys, the magically glowing bracers and the gloves of the Great Father. These have magically glowing bracers. Let's talk about those. Right now, they are strength and intellect bracers that are cloth and require level 26. When TBC drops, those will change to spell power and healing power bracers that require level 26 with int attached to them. There are a lot of items like that are out there, but in addition to the spell power, you can attach a healing enchant to it, the healing power enchant that you can get right now. It's not terribly expensive for risks. And by doing so, you would be getting 16 spell damage and 32 spell healing at level 26. That's kind of insane value for what those would provide. And they were really cheap the other day on the auction house. Gloves of the Great Father will be crafted leatherworking. These were out of the Christmas event that we just had. They provide nature spell power and healing, and the healing will also convert to 1/3 spell power. So, getting a pair of these would be really beneficial because to anyone, because even if you're playing enhance, you're going to want that extra recovery is useful, and you're going to be casting spells. So getting a pair of these would be pretty good. The jingling bell was a fun one too, because if you stocked up on some snowballs, which were available to purchase at the time of the creation of this guide, though right now the event has passed, you can bypass the level 30 mount by riding a reindeer until you can buy your epic mount. So that could have saved a little bit of gold. You may still be able to find snowballs and jingling bells around. Um, and then finally, we have enchants. Just a reminder on enchants that the healing power in enchants will convert to 1/3 spell power with the TBC update. So that extra stats will provide extra value. And there are other modifications to gear that's going to occur. So as you do this, just remind yourself that shamans benefit from literally everything. If you are, every way that we can squeeze a little bit of extra out of gear will help us to make the difference, and we'll get these guys through the dark portal in time to reach our goals. So, guys, that's what I got tonight. That was my shaman presentation. If there are any questions about shaman leveling philosophy or anything else, I'm here for you. Let me know.
Who's starting off the Q&A, guys? I see typing in chat, all the shy people.
I got a question.
Hit me with it.
Okay, I played a shaman and what is now classic Mr. Pandaria, and I ran alchemy with it with the shaman. It was an elemental spec. How well would that do this time around?
Alchemy is going to provide some benefit but the only real thing that alchemy is going to provide from a rating perspective is going to provide you with the trinket that improves your potion usage. So, from a gearing perspective, it doesn't add anything that you would want to wear in raid. But from a experience perspective, from a cash making perspective, alchemy is a great money maker. So if you're going to be not pushing your limits, there's if you're wanting to push an absolute limit, alchemy is not going to help there. But if you're trying to just focus on one character and you want a passive way of making income, alchemy is going to be great. You're going to be able to get those transmutes for those primal mites. You're going to be able to sell that. You're going to be able to sell your potion making or your flasks, elixirs. Like it's definitely got its uses. It just uh, doesn't have any specific benefit to a raiding environment.
Martel, what add-ons, if any, would you use for each spec? I mean, is there obviously going to be different ones for your enhancement to your elemental to your healing, but which ones would you use for those for each spec?
So for a resto, you're going to want some kind of heal predictor and something like a anything that we've used in classic is going to be the same thing. You're going to want something that's going to be show you what you can dispel and
Lulu or something
what
like
it
that.
fasted. Yeah, heal bod. Yeah, there's all kinds of good ones for that. Uh, as long as you have I don't think I could heal well without a predictive healing add-on. I want to see, you need to see where the rest of your healers are already casting a heal to know where you're going to do the most good. So something like that. For a melee, I would definitely recommend some kind of swing timer. There are many out there, but knowing when you're going to swing and how to get the most out of that is going to be very beneficial, especially if you have weapons that are the exact same speed. And this gets in a little bit into the weeds of technicality, but like you kind of want from enhancement to desync your melee swings. You don't want them swinging at the exact same time because you don't want your Wind Fury procs
Having the
to
same
trigger.
time.
Yeah, it gets a little messy. Um, so so I would definitely want some kind of swing timer to make sure I was doing that right. And then uh, I haven't seen any. I think most players were using a weak aura before that would time the totem twisting. I have not seen any new add-on specifically for totem twisting at this stage of the game. I assume there will be one, but essentially you want that timer for when that Wind Fury is going to fall off on your screen somewhere to maintain the totem twisting. Other than that, like it's just the same things that we would always use. Things like a uh, uh, GTFO
Right.
or things like that. And that's especially going to be important for your enhancement shaman. Is they're going to be more melee and they're going to face a lot of those mechanics that are going to be you need to move your feet sort of thing.
A follow-up question with that: is there certain macros that you would use for enhancement shamans to make it more of easier for a person that maybe is has sausage fingers and slow and old?
I'll look for some macros for enhance, but I think that it's basically what you're going to want to do is macro your like trinkets and on use things to your I would think to your storm strike because that's going to be your primary like you're going to use that all the time, right? Storm strike. So anything that you want to activate all the time and use on cooldown, you would want to bake that into a macro for that attack. That'd be how I did it anyway.
Understood. Thank you.
You might even want a macro like, I don't know if this will work, but you might want to find some kind of macro for your standard totem layout.
There is a add-on. I know there was one back in the day. You push one button and it would put out certain um, totems for certain occasions. You know, you could label each button a certain thing, and it would just put that array of totems out for you with one click.
Yeah, and that I think they baked that into the UI come Wrath of the Lich King, if I'm not
Did
mistaken.
they?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
currently it's still in the game because I have it on my Horde Shaman.
Oh, excellent. Well, that's
I
good.
remember that last classic. I had a brief go at Resto in phase 1. But with all the changes of the anniversary, I wasn't sure if that was going to be a thing or not.
All right. Resto sounds like it'd be great. All right. Well, yeah, it's a great question.
Martel, I have a question about going blacksmith as an advanced shaman. So, like, the value is that you craft the epic weapons, and then but to upgrade them, you need to use a lot of the currency that only like drops in SSC and TK and that sort of thing. And I'm wondering about, like, is it worth crafting those with enhancement maybe not being prio on being able to get those materials?
I mean, even the base level I think is worth having. I think it's still your best in slot. I mean, it's very high on the list, and as we learned in classic, the value of weapons on a melee class is incredible. I mean, at how many warriors and rogues did you see go rank 14 just for the weapons access, just to have a baseline quality weapon? I mean, it was like every raider I saw had those rank 14 weapons to try to get started. I think blacksmithing is kind of the same way. It's going to be very hard to find a weapon that is quite as good as the blacksmithing weapons um, outside of that path.
That question almost kind of gets a little bit into like a loot council area too, in terms of like the priority of where materials are going to end up going. And just as in terms of like a policy perspective and loot council determinations, um, I will tell you that uh, you know having keeping your options open for where you can get an increase is always a good thing, and something that your loot council takes into account when they're giving out items, or where guilds, the guild bank in particular, if there's crafted material that needs to be disseminated, where we're going to kind of focus our analysis. Um, you're best served by having more options, and so I think blacksmithing in this case is one of those scenarios where it gives you more options. Just to lay out an example, because I know that's a little ethereal, not anything kind of that you can grab onto with that. If for example, there was a shortage of materials in SSC and TK. Initially, our enhancement shamans may be, would be prioritized for a weapon earlier on, with the understanding that later in the phase they would be able to get that item that is still their best in slot with it. Conversely, depending on where people finish out phase 1 gear, and where loot council on a particular team feels they're at, they might look at that enhancement role and think that it would be a wise investment in materials to catch them up to the raid, depending on where the team is in general, if there's been a lot of attrition or not. So those are all kinds of analysis that would go on from a loot council perspective that would impact what frequency with which you could expect to change out your weapon. So just keep that in mind, is that keeping your options open, having a source of a weapon that's, especially in the early phase, independent of what the drop might look like, or, your ability to get something from a raid, is definitely a positive. And then, it opens the door for your loot council to really consider you, for a bunch of different ways, right? It's not just a matter of saying, well, if a weapon eventually drops, we're going to have to hand it to our enhancement because, they don't have blacksmithing and there's nothing else we can get to them, which might look a little more begrudging from an LC perspective than to say, well, they've got their blacksmith weapons, so they're pretty good right now, but we want to make sure that we get there eventually, or any of the other 100 ways that they could go down. So keep your options open is what I would say. It's one of the advantages of kind of going with those meta profession decisions, but obviously professions are one of those areas as a matter of guild policy where they're completely up to personal player choice. And so we are talking about impact, that if you for some reason, somebody brought up alchemy, if you wanted to go to alchemy and plan on doing flask farming and making your money for the expansion in that way, so you can get your epic flying or whatever it might be, you know these are not major decisions, but they are impactful decisions.
Cool. Thanks for the insight on both parts.
Mhm.
Also, the matching weapon speed has to do with
Yeah.
if your weapons are at the same speed, you don't consume 2 fury stacks.
I think there is a way to desync them if you have the same weapon speed, but it's not difficult. There's just something you have to do. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
You kind of turn sideways as towards the mob, so that one side of you comes in a little
Right.
bit before the other. Yeah, it's a little complicated to get into the weeds there. So it's yeah, it's rough. It was a little deeper than I wanted to go, but it uh, definitely does exist. That you
Is it so?
the optimal is you want the same speed, but do you want them desynced?
Right. So as a warrior, that you didn't want them synced. Then I think, if I'm not mistaken, that you do want them synced as a shaman, correct? You want them at the same speed.
Um, that wasn't what I had read. I had read that you wanted them at the same speed, but out of sync. So you didn't want them swinging in the exact same moment. So you had to sort of like walk to the mob sideways to start your attacks.
Okay.
That's what I had read, and of course, I I am not infallible. I could have made a mistake on that. So be sure to do. I mean, I would encourage everyone, do your own homework. Definitely look into this in a level of detail that you want to be at to understand how you want to play the class optimally. Like that particular benefit, I think, would probably work out to be fairly minor.
Well, and it's also important to understand too where we're at right now in terms of what we're looking to accomplish. And the goal is, out of this, right, is to make sure you're prepped for pre-patch and ready to get up to 60 so you can go through the portal. Maybe get your pre-quest done if you're really ahead of the game, so you can basically just like instant go up to 62. um you know and then once we get further into the expansion, and we're coming up on raid launch and kicking off teams, we can get into some of the nitty gritty of the min-maxing the class, maximizing damage, and rotational, this, that, and the other. So definitely bear in mind what your priorities are right now in terms of what you're spending your time researching versus preparing. Making sure if you're looking to play shaman that you're ready to hit pre-patch running is definitely most important. And so definitely the value in presentation from Martel tonight. We'll do last call for any other questions from Martel on leveling up the shaman, getting ready for pre-patch.
I've got nothing right now. I just wanted to tune in and learn about other classes and stuff. As many of these talks I can get in, the better, I think. So it was wonderful.
All right, guys. In that case, thank you so much, and thanks for coming in. I can't wait till we see pre-patch next week and get going out there.
I'm excited, man. I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, and on behalf of everybody in the channel, thank you, Martel, for putting this together, taking the time. Siva, thank you for recording. And thanks for everybody making the time to come tonight and follow along. It's nice to see things starting to get a little life heading into TBC, and we'll keep the trend going. So appreciate player development and the quick turnaround from their promotion to their first presentation, and excited to see then what's next on the agenda for the guild events. Thanks, everybody.